Best Available Podcast, episode 12. It is once again another one of those fall days that we were talking about a week ago. Matt, I woke up and I could just see the clouds through my windows. It's just very gray outside. The temperature is a little low. It's in the high 50s, low 60s. I have some sweatpants on. I have a flannel on. It's fall. It's fall. But we're gonna power through. As I said, this is episode 12, so we've been doing this here for a while. Gonna talk about some sports. We got the World Series. That's going on. We got some NFL Week 7 action. There were a lot of good games yesterday. That's one of the cool things when your team doesn't play on Sunday. You kind of get to go more in depth with all the other teams in the league, and that's what I was able to do. So that was a nice fun. It was weird, Matt. I wasn't I've equated Sundays during the fall with being on edge and stressed and pissed and just overall hating everything. But yesterday was cool because I didn't have to feel any of that. I was jovial, I was upbeat, I was stress free. It was great. But Matt, I'll ask you this before we get into all the fun sports action. How have you been since the last time we recorded?
And we're doing great, Ryan. It is fall, but we're now in the ugly part of fall. The cute part of fall is when the foliage is kind of coming to fruition, and it's still like 60 degrees or better and sunny, and it doesn't get dark really early. But now we're in the ugly part of fall. Remember, next week it's going to start getting dark at like 5 o'clock, and that sucks.
I
So we're
like
going to
that.
be you why? You like feeling like you're in Antarctica all year long, Ryan? Is that
It's
it?
I've been on the record before as saying that summer is the worst season of the year. And people like to say, "Oh, but don't you like all the extra daylight, this and that?" I don't. I like when it gets dark early. I don't know. It just I like you wake up, the sun's up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you start by 4:15, 4:30. You see it start to get a little dark. I don't know. I've always liked that.
Yeah,
It's just
I think you might be the only person who
that's my aesthetic. I
enjoys that.
think that's my
It's
aesthetic.
you like it. You like it being dark before you get home for dinner. Is that it?
Yes, I do. I
There
actually
would be
do.
times, Ryan. There would be times after daylight savings time when I would wake up and it would be dark out. I'd go to work and then I'd be inside all day and then I'd leave and it'd be dark out. So I would never see daylight. So the entire winter, Ryan, I did not see the sun. So why would you want it to be dark at 5 o'clock? I mean, then you don't have enough time for activities to go on like a walk or a
Well,
bike ride.
that's it was a little different, I guess, when I was younger because you'd play football during the week after school, but you can only play for like an hour maybe because of how early, that was the one downside. I'd say it was kind of like that for us at Monmouth, but they had obviously the big windows in the communication building, so at least we did get to see the sun at some point. But yeah, I don't know. I just try to look for the positives in it. I mean, I know this time of year people just they don't like it for one reason or another. So I just try to just attack it head on, be like, all right, well, if it's gonna get dark, I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna find the positives in it, and we'll see. But it's fall. It's almost the end, Matt, of the best month of the year in my opinion, which is October. Aside from the fact that it's the month that Glenda Negris was born, there's just everything going on, especially this year. There's a lot more stuff going on, especially with sports in October than there normally would be. But now we get into November, Matt, and that's, of course, a very important month for a lot of reasons. So,
Yeah,
uh,
because college basketball starts. I think that's the main reason, Ryan.
that's
I,
what
I
I was.
think you also neglected to. I did neglected to mention that we are in the week of the worst day of the year, and that is Halloween. The dumbest
Oh,
concept ever,
I was
especially
gonna.
this year.
I
So
was.
Matt DeLuca's soapbox segment of the week here. Don't if you are a parent and you're going to get parenting advice from a 23-year-old guy right now, do not go take your kids trick or treating during a pandemic. That is what I have to say. I don't really know if people are going to do that, but I can't even begin to wrap my head around trick or treating during a pandemic. So that's my soapbox segment of the week. Uh, I
I
don't
was
know.
gonna bring that up. You have been anti-Halloween that I know of openly for a few years now, dating back to 2017 when you talked up National Flossing Day over Halloween as a holiday.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
so
I floss every day. That's an important recognition. Some people don't floss every day. You should floss once a day.
so are you not gonna dress up on Halloween this year,
No,
Matt?
I'm not.
No.
I'm gonna turn the lights off. No candy. No kid. No one's coming up to the house. You got to go. If for whatever reason your parents let you go trick or treating during a pandemic, you're not getting candy from the DeLucas. So
I think what
thank
we're
you.
doing,
Next.
and I propose this idea because I do kind of feel bad for not like I feel like the older kind of Halloween trick or treaters. They're like in that if you're looking at I'd say 10 to 12, 13 range, I think you'd kind of be able to be mature enough to understand. But like the younger kids, I kind of felt bad for. So we're gonna put together like little grab and go bags. Like you just walk up, we'll have like a little table and and whatever. It's like just take one bag, put it in your
Yeah, but how do you
wherever.
make sure they take just one
Well,
bag though?
that's the thing. You work on the honor system, and then if some kid
There's
just
no
says,
honor system anymore, Ryan. I mean, there wasn't one when we were kids. I I get it. There's ways to do it, but like to just do regular trick or treating during a pandemic, no, thank you. Like regardless of if your kid is 5 years old or 15, like you just gotta accept that you know
my
there's a risk out
recommendation
there.
to parents would just be to wait until Sunday and then go to the store and get all the discounted candy. And then that could be your kid's
Yeah.
Halloween.
And
That's
then you could just have them go trick or treating around your house to the different rooms and then get different candy that way. I mean, and I think I'm sure parents see this is 4D chess right here that I'm playing. I'm sure parents love to hear advice from two 23-year-old individuals at 11:30 in the morning on a Monday. I'm sure they love our advice, but I don't know. I think part of it, Ryan, my desire to kill Halloween this year comes from just not liking the holiday to begin with.
you've
So
been
the
very
pandemic, the
anti.
pandemic. So parents out there, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking the holiday. It's not even a holiday. You just dress up as something. You go to Spirit Halloween that popped up in your local Verizon store. Then you get your $30 costume. Then you go out and it's like 45 degrees out. And then when you're a kid, sometimes you got to put a coat on because it's a little too cold. So then you can't even see your costume. And then you get candy, and then boom, it's November. Right? The more important factor here is that November 1st is when we turn on Christmas music. That's what happens. I think we're missing the big reality here of the situation. Actually, no, this year it's going to be November 4th because we're going to be focused on other things before November 3rd, which is a big day. So November 4th this year, we're starting Christmas. That's when Christmas begins, November 4th.
I'm gonna one up you here. I've been listening to Christmas music for a couple months now. I'd say going back to
Yeah.
August. So
It's a happy vibe during a crazy time. That's okay. But I'm saying we officially declare it Christmas November 4th. Usually for me it's November 1st, but since it's an election year, we're going to move it back. We're postponing Christmas until November 4th.
I'm just saying, if I
So
had my own place, the tree would be up and ready to go on November 1st by
well,
10.
my mom has been calling for that too. She's been grinding through Hallmark movies. She's getting ideas on how to decorate the house. So
Mhm.
here, this is the thing, Ryan. What does it tell you about Halloween that we are already talking about Christmas? It is
Well,
already an overlooked day.
okay, hold on.
Therefore,
Slow down.
it is the overrated
No.
nonsense. And there's so many people. And listen, if you like Halloween, that's fine. Like I'm not going to criticize what someone likes in their like their favorite days and stuff because we know a lot of people who enjoy the day and that's fine. They can enjoy the day, but me personally, I don't like it. Why do I want to purchase candy and then just leave it out there for people to just not use the honor system like you say it is? We've been thinking that people are going to use the honor system, Ryan, with masks and washing their hands. And look at where we are now. So how is that going to be any different than candy?
So I'm gonna dress up. I'm gonna wear a costume on Saturday. I'm very
But you
excited
could
about
pull
it.
off. Well, Is it still the one you mentioned to me?
Yes, I ordered part of the. I'm not going to
Well,
spoil
see,
it.
that one's fine because if let me rephrase. If you want to dress up and get some Instagram likes out of it, I'm all for that. Get part of the content plan out there, get a costume, like get some likes. I'm all for that. But there should be no Halloween parties. There should be nothing. Just stay inside and watch college football, everybody. Penn State and Ohio State play on Saturday. Just
No,
watch
you
that
don't.
instead.
Don't watch that. It's going to be a bad game. I ordered part of my Penn State stinks. I ordered part of my costume from. Um, I'm trying to think about how I want to phrase this. I ordered it not from the United States and the official store that someone would probably purchase this from. Is what
I
I'm
thought
going to
you were going to
say.
go from the official route.
I
I thought
thought about it, but then I read really bad reviews of the company that handles all the manufacturing for that store. I'm not going to say any names, but I
really.
didn't trust them. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to spend $20 on this thing that'll probably be just as good. And the problem is because it's being shipped from China, I don't know when this thing's going to show up. It's been in transit for 10 days. I think it's on its way here. I don't know. It could be here.
You could have
Bef-
probably went to Columbus and probably found it in one of the vendors there, and then get your favorite pizza right after.
I don't. Yeah, that is where good pizza is in New Jersey. I don't know if they would have this guy's jersey, but I'm excited. Just to, I mean, my hair is kind of long enough to where I'm able to do that this year. So I figured I might as well take advantage of it. I got to shave the beard and just keep the mustache. But
So if anyone wants to take guesses, leave a reply on this tweet or Facebook post or YouTube video, however you're listening or viewing this thing that
I've
we're
given
doing
big
right
enough
now.
hints at this point. If they can't get it by now, I don't.
Mustache, jersey, not as well known, might be benched pretty soon. Tough
Oh,
loss yesterday.
and we'll get
Almost.
into that. That's on our list of
All
games
right. So
here.
yeah, that's my hatred of Halloween. If you like it, great. But we just gave a really good idea out there to everyone. If you're a little nervous about taking your kids out trick or treating, or you yourself don't want to go out trick or treating, get some candy, put it around your house, and do it within your house. Boom. That's
Like a
a huge.
like an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You could even do it in your backyard. Get a little outdoors time in.
So that's that. Um, Me and Matt are on different sides of the Halloween thing. It's not my favorite. Like if you had me name my top 5 holidays, it wouldn't be top 5. But when I get my own apartment and stuff, I might decorate. I might throw up like some Halloween decor around the apartment. But
No, it's the it.
maybe hang some little ghosts from the ceiling.
When you come down my street, Ryan, you know how there's the first house on the right with the little curve coming down? They
Sure.
put like this giant spider on a spider web on like between two trees. And it's
Oh,
like
there's a house near me that kind of does that too. They have it coming right off the house. There's this big web and a couple spiders. It's cool. I like it.
it's a little spooky for me. But I don't know.
Well,
Uh,
what
I,
else
I
is
like your
spooky?
idea. I could get I well I like your I'm going to set you back up for that transition, Ryan. I like your idea for the basket. I put the bowl at like the end of your driveway or something for trick or treaters. I'm starting to warm up to that idea.
And listen, if
um
they listen,
so let me reform. If you want to go trick or treating, just don't go door to door. If we all do this honor system bowl at the end of the driveway, I think that's acceptable. I think that should be fine.
and listen, if some, I'm not going to say a word that I wanted to say. If some, uh, I'm trying to think of an interesting way to phrase this. If someone, okay, if someone is rude enough to just take all the candy because they're like, they're never going to tell, then it is what it is. It's whatever happens. But you just got to hope that kids see the sign that says, please take one. And then they just take one and they just move on with their day. But I'm probably expecting a little too much because I know if I saw that when I was a kid, I might try to take two. Who's to say? Maybe I see, oop, Who's to say? But I'd probably take one.
Yeah, there you go. You're just about to lecture people on the honor system, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to take more than
Well,
one.
I could see it, maybe if it's like late at night and there's still a lot left, it's like, okay, well, they can't take all this back, so I'm gonna
Unless
help
it's
them
like
out a little
Milky
bit.
Way bars, then you skip it altogether. I mean, I saw people trying to justify Milky Way as a suitable candy does not even compare to the ranks of Snickers, Twix, Hershey's. There's not even the same ballpark, Ryan.
I
People
like them.
trying to.
They're not
I
in my
mean,
top 5, but I like them.
yeah, they're
Um,
like a second tier candy. It gets a job done, but I'm saying it's not like a top tier upper echelon snack per se. But yeah, so spooky season. There you go. Now I'm setting you back up. See how I brought you back in. So you know what else is spooky? There you go.
oh yeah, Matt, do you know the other stuff that was that the other stuff that was spooky was the World Series, right? There you go. That was a good transition. The Dodgers and the Rays. First of all, I need to get this out here. If you care about what uniforms the teams are wearing, just I normally I would say grow up, but it seems like that's the problem is that the old people have an issue with it. So if you have an issue, there's a lot of other stuff going on right now. The uniform that a team chooses to wear is not a big deal. I don't care if it's the World Series. I don't care if it's the Super Bowl. Let them wear what they want to wear. It ain't distracting you. But
Well,
that's
Ryan, the Rays are 0-1 in their alternate jerseys in the World Series. Don't you think that's an issue?
no, I don't. That I'm gonna call Andy Martino. I saw this. He was the tweet that I saw, and then there were a couple other people that we're close with that parroted that idea. Just let them let people have fun. Let people see the cool color scheme and the cool hat. Just let them have fun. The uniform doesn't matter. But the Dodgers beat the Rays 4-2. So as Matt said, they were 0-1 in those uniforms. The Dodgers got on the board very quickly. They scored 2 runs in the first. They scored 1 run in the second. And that was basically all they needed. They would add on another run in the fifth. It seemed like the Rays were about to do it again late in the game, but they were not able to. Matt, we'll get into Clayton Kershaw in a second, but I do want to say Tyler Glasnow fell again. He struck out 7, but he had issues with the long ball. He let up runs in only 5 innings of work. And I'm a big Glasnow guy, but at the same time, I understand and I'm able to admit what his weaknesses are. He's a very flashy guy. He strikes out batters. He makes everything look really easy. Great head of hair. I'm very jealous every time I see that hair move whenever he throws a pitch. But man, he lets up a lot of hard contact. Like I think, okay, here we go. So the highest hard hit percentage allowed from 2015 to 2020 by a pitcher with a minimum of 10 batted balls allowed in a game. So I know that's a great statistic. It's a mouthful. Glasnow was number 1. So he lets up a lot of hard contact. And when you have the pitches that he has 2 good pitches and then he doesn't really have a consistent third one. So you're already playing with fire at that point. Then when you let the hard contact that he does, you're really risking it. And I think over his career, I think he'll be fine, but you can definitely tell that he has some weaknesses in this series. The Dodgers hitters are very good. They'll attack him. They'll make him pay. But Matt, the Dodgers are a game away from a World Series title. Can they close it out in game 6, or are we going to go to 7 games?
As someone who said Dodgers in 6 and then was called a name by you, a not so nice name, because I picked the Dodgers in 6, they're going to end it Tuesday night. About Glasnow, Ryan, he's a hard thrower. Here's a old man take on this, or at least this theory, Ryan. I feel like a lot more of the harder throwers are going to have harder hit balls just from the fact that the pitch coming in. And you could tell me if I'm wrong, but this is just like the very baseline theory here that those balls are going to be hit harder because they're coming in harder. But he's also playing against the Dodgers, so I don't really discount a younger pitcher going up against a lineup that is the best we've seen in years. So I don't know. It sucks because I feel like a lot of us want to see Tampa Bay win. Excuse me, Tampa Bay. I had to explain to one of our friends why I pronounce it that way. Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. So it's now Tampa Bay. It's either that or Tampa Brady, but Tampa Bay sounds better. Um, it sucks because the Rays. This is like probably the best team they've ever had, Ryan, and they had to go up against the Dodgers, who were having this historic season. If it was literally like almost any other team, I would have probably picked Tampa, right? If they played Atlanta, I would have picked Tampa. Pretty much any NL team other than the Dodgers. So it kind of is one of those like sucks to be you thing if you're Tampa. Also, Glass knows hair, Ryan. He's a Cali boy, so that's why it's so good right off the bat. I don't know what advantage they have in that regard out there out west, but the Dodgers are going to win in 6. Mookie Betts is just trying to make my heart hurt even more, Ryan, with spectacular grab after spectacular grab, or a home run, or a stolen base. Got the whole country a free taco because he stole a base. That's heartbreaking to see, but I'm happy for the guy, and I just don't. I don't think the Rays really can match the talent level, and there's only so much small ball and money ball, and all these like to the average fan, a lot of their rosters, these no name guys, and you can only do that so much against a team like the Dodgers. And I'm sure we're going to debunk the Clayton Kershaw theory even more in a second, but yeah, it's just unfortunate because this is a good team, but you're going up against it. And if the Dodgers ended Game 4 more competently, Ryan, then we might not even be going to a Game 6, right? We haven't even mentioned what happened Saturday night. So if Kenley Jansen goes and backs the ball up or backs the base up, we might not even be looking at a Game 6. Which I don't think that's talked about enough. No one really mentioned how he didn't go to back up home plate, right? So then the ball gets
fair.
by Will Smith, and I know it took 2 errors to get to that point, but at the same time, that's why you back up the base, right? I mean, that's as someone who hasn't played baseball in a long time, I feel like that wasn't really talked about as much.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a good way to put it. I don't I kind of always felt that it would go at least 6, but yeah, I mean that's still crazy. I mean, we can talk about Game 4 a little bit. That's I'd say that's probably the craziest ending to a World Series game I've seen in my lifetime. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's any crazier. I mean, you could say Game 7 of the 2016 World Series just because of the implications between all of it, but even still, I don't think it adds up to what happened in Game 4. Yeah, it's I'd like so I want to say this. I think the Rays I think they're going to win a World Series soon. I think that they have a lot of talent on that team. They can obviously develop it and find it. I mean, you see all these guys in this team that nobody really saw anything in. I mean, they traded for Rosarena is the big name right now. How they traded with the Cardinals for him, and I don't think anybody expected he was going to do what he's done this postseason, and I'd say the season in general. I mean, but the batters, the pitchers, it's just they have a good system in place. They'll win eventually, but they're going up against a historically good Dodgers team. And I think before the World Series, before the postseason, I think I did pick the Dodgers, but I really bought into the Rays, and I think they can force a Game 7. I really hope they force a Game 7 because I need to see a Walker Buehler and Charlie Morton Game 7 in my lifetime. I think that would be incredible. But I don't know. I don't. Part of me wants it to get extended, but part of me also wants the Rays to lose. That way the Phillies can interview Neander and do one smart thing, which is, but I don't know, Matt. Let me ask you this. For the for this World Series in particular, how does it compare to more recent World Series that we've seen?
Well, I'm going to exclude 2013 and 2018 just for
Mm,
the bias factor.
mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple World Series titles in my lifetime. Slam
Did
that
I
down
do
a little
that?
harder,
Oops.
Ryan. The only one I could think of, and you mentioned it, was 2016. I mean, I would say I can't remember what game it was, Ryan, between the Dodgers and Astros, that it was either one that went like 15 innings, or was another one, I think it might have been the same game, that was super high scoring. Um, I know I could probably fact check it, but I'm going to try and bring the point around. But that could be the only one that really compares. I know we had an exciting World Series last year, but didn't really have as much juice as that Dodgers Astros meeting had. Um, this one's definitely up there, though. These are two really good teams, and obviously, Game Four, it was probably excluding 2013, or let me expand it, 2004, 07, 13, or 18. I had to expand it for you there. Excluding those 4 years, probably the wildest, even still, the wildest ending, if you count those 4 years, to a postseason game. The only other wild ending I could think of, well, maybe not even that. I mean, you got to take into account the Cleveland Chicago game. Um, there's a couple ones from the Dodgers Astros, but it's definitely up there for sure.
So, fun fact that I didn't realize until I looked at this: 3 of the last 4 World Series have gone 7 games. So I'm hoping that we make it 4 out of 5 this year. I just want baseball to keep going selfishly, but also I think a game 7 between these two teams would be really fun to watch. And I also think, and this will transition to our Clayton Kershaw thing, that because Kershaw was taken out as early as he was, maybe we see him kind of do what Bumgarner did several years back. And I guess that was 2014, to where he comes in relief in game 7. But I do want to talk about Kershaw because I hope that this show, we talked about it last week, and now we actually have some actual tentative, that's not the word, but we're going to go with it. We have some stuff to back that up. So we tried to argue, both of us, that Clayton Kershaw does not choke in the postseason. There's a lot of context that people need to be aware of. People cite his ERA and just his win loss record, this and that. Well, this postseason, he has a 2.93 ERA, and he's struck out 37 guys. He's only walked 5. He hasn't. I hope that we can put this narrative finally to bed, Matt. We're
Clearly, we
not.
can't. Clearly, we can't, Ryan, because there's still people out there. The guy went out there and did his job yesterday, and people are still not giving him the credit that's due. So clearly, we haven't mounted that uh, peak yet. So not calling anyone out, but we're
Kershaw's
still.
not. It's not even just. I mean, there's a lot of people that have this notion that he chokes in the postseason, and we're not going to get. I'm not going to get into it again, but just I need to make it clear that he doesn't choke. And now in this World Series, he put together 2 very good starts. I mean, yesterday, maybe very good might be a stretch, but he was good. He did what he needed to do to put the Dodgers in a position to win. The bats gave him offensive support. And that's really a big thing. Throughout a lot of his tenure, the bats have not given him offensive support when it comes to the postseason. So at least that's happened this time around. But as much as I want the Rays to win, I also want Kershaw to finally have a ring because he's done everything else. He's been probably the best pitcher of our generation. I mean, you could make an argument for other guys, but I'd put him there. He's gotten the awards, he's gotten the accolades, but he's still missing that ring. And he's going to make the Hall of Fame regardless, but the ring would really that's the last thing that he needs. So as much as I said I'd like to see that Rays organization get their first title, I, I think Clayton getting a ring and finally getting over that hump of maybe now people realize that he's a good postseason pitcher. I think that might be a little more important long term.
Well, this is the same narrative. These people, the logic should, if you're a Clayton Kershaw hater, then logically it aligns up with the LeBron narrative in the finals, which is another one that I don't really understand. There's still people out there, Ryan, to this day that think LeBron chokes in the playoffs or can't get it done. I'm going to debunk two theories in one swing, Ryan. Are you ready for this? I'm going to do a double debunk. The reason why these guys have some of, a tough loss here, a tough loss there in the playoffs is because of the sheer number of times they've been in the postseason, right? Think about LeBron outside of, I guess it was last year, right? He won 10 plus years without missing the playoffs, and he was in the finals for like 5 or 6 straight years. Those numbers might be off by a year or two. I'm just pulling numbers out right now. Kershaw is the same way, right? We talked about last week how the Dodgers have won that division for 8 straight seasons. So the number, like, you're going to have all of the opportunities there. So clearly, when the sample size is bigger, you're going to have both sides in there. So to sit there and say that, guys like Kershaw, Braun, that they're chokers is just not it to me. Like, it's, you gotta, I think it's a lazy, weak narrative to sit there and say that. And to the people who still think Clayton Kershaw is a choker, Ryan, just go and watch the games and don't just look at who's pitching on the mound and the scoreboard. And I think that's what a lot of these people do, Ryan, is they look at the final score, they look at how many runs he gave up, and they say he choked. And it goes to another reason why the win-loss for pitchers is a dumb stat, because they say lost Kershaw. They go, oh, well, he blew it again. Errors, as you mentioned, lack of run support. But as you mentioned again, this year he's getting that run support and he's been effective in pretty much every start. So I think this even continues if he wins a ring, Ryan, because let's say they're right back in his position next year and he has a bad start, we're going to be in the same spot again. So I don't know. It's kind of annoying, but it's the same logic to the people who somehow still think that LeBron James is not a good postseason performer because he lost in the finals to the Warriors a bunch of times. Like, that's, yeah, I don't get that logic.
Yeah, I mean, you brought it up. The fact that he's been we're talking, the LeBron thing. I want to agree with you because the fact that he's been in the finals 10 times, that's something in and of itself that
And
should be celebrated.
Yeah. And Kershaw's the same way, right? Maybe not as much World Series appearances, but the sport's a little different. But we're going to broaden it to postseason appearances. The Dodgers have been a mainstay since our high school days, Ryan, right? So we went through all of high school, all of college, and now we're crazy to think like we're in year 2 of being out technically, right? And they're still in the postseason. So it's just simple statistics. You broaden the sample size, so those bad little outliers are going to be in there. And there's going to be more of those bad outliers the more you expand it and say, oh, well, the all-time greats will never have a bad start. And I'm like, this isn't a video game, right? This isn't MLB The Show when you're playing on rookie mode, striking people out, and then going and posting it on like your Snapchat saying, oh, look at me, I threw a no-hitter. Like, you're not, like, these guys are human. And mind you, too, they didn't really have a full spring training. Then they had 4 months off, then a 2-week camp right before a 60-game season. So any bad performance from anyone this season shouldn't really be taken. It should be taken with a grain of salt because of these circumstances behind it. So I think people just love to have something to complain about, Ryan, or love to be able to put this guy down. And it's sad because, as you mentioned, he's arguably the greatest pitcher in our generation. So I don't really, it's just annoying. Like, and too, if he comes in a game 7 in relief and he gives up a run or two, you're going to see those people. They're going to come out of, hiding and be like, oh, well, Kershaw's doing it again. And it's, a never-ending cycle with this guy. So I hope he wins it, so we don't have to have this conversation anymore. We shouldn't have this conversation for the past 3 or 4 years, but we're still doing it.
The the Dodgers are going to be good for a long time because I'm
Yeah,
just looking at their roster. Mookie's 28, Seager's 26, Will Smith's 25, Bellinger's 25,
and,
Gonsolin's 26, Bueller's 26, Urias is 24. They have young arms in the bullpen. They have young guys, hitters in the minor leagues. It's just
and they, unlike other teams, Ryan, aren't concerned about resetting the luxury tax or whatever.
no.
They, unlike some others, others. There we go. I pointed for those. We do this on YouTube, by the way, for anyone who's listening who wants to watch this. I just pointed to my Red Sox banner behind me. But Ryan, and I mentioned this last week too. They have David Price on their team. Like they're adding a Cy Young quality pitcher to their team. Oh, like David Price is a shell of what he once was. No, he wasn't. He was really effective in his last couple of years in the Red Sox. So when do you think that how long do you think this streak is going to continue of division titles and playoff appearances? It's going to reach ridiculous, like Patriots territory pretty soon.
Division title, I'd say that's a little up in the air. I'd say playoff appearance, at least another 5 years,
So
probably.
that would
I
be
mean,
like 13, 14 years. Like that's like New England Patriots status. Like we could, like they obviously don't have the World Series to match it yet, but in terms of just postseason uh appear like awareness, not even the word, I don't know what to say, like just being there. I mean, they're in they're in a really good spot, and again, they don't care about being in the luxury tax, so good for them having owners that are willing to spend money to win. That must be a good thing.
I'm comparing both of their rosters. It's crazy how much of the Dodgers talent was either drafted by them or signed as an amateur free agent from like the Dominican Republic or something compared to the Rays. Like the Rays obviously have a very good player development system, but like comparing both of these teams, like let me ask you, how many batters in the Rays lineup do you think they drafted?
In the Rays lineup, hold on, let me pull up. I'm gonna get a visual here. Great radio we're doing right now.
It's we're good.
Because I want to be able to. I would say my initial guess would be two. Um, let's look at Sunday's lineup here. Um, yeah, I'm gonna stick with two.
Brandon Lau and Kevin
Yeah.
Kiermaier.
Oh,
And everyone
look at
else
me.
they
Go
got
me.
from a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Margot, Renfro, Zanino. Yeah.
like even their bench, they got Brasso as a non-drafted free agent. They purchased Satsugo from Japan. But other than that, the other guys they traded, their rotation, they drafted Snell, but they traded for Glass Snell. They signed Morton as a free agent. Their bullpen is just it's a lot of cast-offs that people didn't like for one reason or another, but the Rays got stuff out of them. I mean, they got Diego Castillo as an amateur free agent. They drafted McClanahan and Fleming, but that's it. But then you look at the Dodgers, they drafted Seager, Will Smith, Bellinger, Peterson, Beatty, Rios. Their entire starting rotation was drafted by them. They have four big time bullpen pieces that were drafted by them. It's just kind of crazy to see the different ways that these teams constructed their rosters when you compare them side by side. But it works. It works for both of them. So yeah, I'd say at least 5 more years, and that's not even getting into guys like Kyber Ruiz, Gavin Lux for the Dodgers. So man, this team's gonna be good for a long time. They're gonna be very good.
Yeah. And to think all those guys, Ryan, trading one of the best players in baseball, could have got some of those guys in return. Right? Unreal. Well,
Yeah,
good for Mookie.
I
I'm
think
glad
Red
he's going to
Sox
win.
fans, I've seen this a lot in this series and for good reason. And I guess for the entire postseason, I think that they have a right to be upset.
Like, if you're going to trade him, right? I could still, and we've had this conversation before, and I can't get over it. I remember when it happened. I was listening to Boston sports radio at work, and I couldn't believe it, and neither could they. And to think we couldn't have gotten Dustin May, either of the guys you mentioned, like maybe someone from their lineup. The fact that we walked away with, and Alex Verdugo's a decent player, Ryan, but like from what we're seeing in the postseason, like this is ridiculous. Like absolutely ridiculous. And it's not really Hein Bloom's fault. I've came around to realizing that the fact that it went so public that John Henry didn't want to pay people, uh, it's just it's just annoying. It's so sad, right? Because and Glenn likes to poke at me every once in a while, and he just makes me sad when I when I he's like, oh, imagine trading Mookie Betts. I'm like, I imagine that every day, man. Like it's a reality for us Red Sox fans. And I mean, yeah, we won a World Series, but like, holy crap, man! Like, just pay the guy. Like, oh, we resetted the luxury tax. Like, oh, that's great. You still have Nathan Evaldi on your team and like a bunch of scrubs. Like, it's just good for Mookie. I'm glad he's somewhere where he's appreciated by the ownership and by everyone. So, did you get your free taco because of his stolen base or no?
No,
It's um, it's just pain, Ryan. Pain, pain, pain.
it's Blake Snell and Tony Gonsolin on Tuesday at 8:08 p.m. We'll see if the Rays can force a game 7 or if the Dodgers can finally get over the hump and win their first title in a while. And of course, if game 7 is necessary, that would be Wednesday. And as I said, that'd probably be Walker Bueller and Charlie Morton at 8:09. Be sure to make that change on your calendars. Make sure you don't watch a minute too early. It's 8:09.
That minute makes a huge difference, Ryan. Really does. So I'm sure that's going to really throw everyone. That's the bigger time change than when we reset our clocks on Sunday. Going from 8:08 to 8:09 might be the biggest one. LA and 6, Ryan. So I forget what words you called me
It was moron.
when I told you. Yeah, I am one of those morons who said Dodgers in 6. So we're gonna hope that they make me right. Um, but you called the World Series right, though. You called the matchup correctly. So
Yeah, I really went out on a limb picking the 2-1 seeds and it worked out. So just gonna pat myself on the back for that one. Joe Buck finally gets a well-deserved day off today after calling many games in many days and getting slandered each day he did it. But
I saw some of my family members, Ryan, slandering Joe Buck the other day. I was taken aback. They posted a picture of, I guess, these two Phillies fans or something, that there was a sign that said drove 8 hours so I didn't have to listen to Joe Buck. And I'm like, like we're still doing this too. It's like the Kershaw narrative, the LeBron narrative, and the Joe Buck thing. Just the three things we can't get rid of in 2020, Ryan.
I'd say it's just the older crowd that seems to have an issue with Buck, but it it's I know for a fact that it's not. So that was the World Series that we talked for a long time about. And now we're gonna move on to some football. Woo yay, football. So we're just gonna get through just a couple of these games real quick. The Bills looked like frauds for a while. They were able to pull out an 18-10 win over the Jets. The Packers bounced back. They beat the Texans 35-20. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won by 25 over the Las Vegas Raiders. They improved to 5-2. The Raiders dropped to 3-3. Chiefs and Broncos was not really close at all at any point. It was 43-16. Good football weather there, though. That was a nice positive. And then the Colts, Dolphins, Vikings, and Ravens were all on a bye. So Detroit and Atlanta. And I guess I should have seen this one coming because I bet on the Falcons. So I should have known that this would happen. Todd Gurley found his way into the end zone, which normally is a good thing, but not this time. So the Lions got the ball back. And then with no time on the clock, TJ Hawkinson was found in the end zone by Matt Stafford for his first touchdown pass of the day. An unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Danny Amendola moved the extra point attempt back 15 yards, but it doesn't matter because they have bad Prater. And the Lions win 23-22. They keep their playoff hopes alive. And we'll talk about this in a second because, I mean, the NFC has a lot of good teams, but the Falcons, they found another way to blow a game this year, and this time it wasn't even Dan Quinn in charge. So I don't know. Matt, we both talked about the Lions at the start of the season as a team that could surprise some people, but you've become very high on them recently. And after this win, it seems like you've kind of fully bought into this team.
Ryan, listen, I mean, 3-1 on the road, one of the best road teams in the NFL right now. These guys know how to go out there and play football away from Detroit. Matt Stafford looks really good. I think that the Lions are, it stinks for them in the sense that if they were in the AFC, they'd be in a lot better position to make a run at the playoffs. But because of the fact that the entire NFC West is above 500, that kind of puts them back a little bit. Detroit, I'm telling you, Ryan, they're not bad. Like they're a pretty decent team. I mean, you look just in terms of like base value of like names. I mean, they've half the Patriots defense from the past couple of years, like I've mentioned before. And I could vouch that these guys are good players. Danny Shelton had a good game yesterday. You got Deron Harmon out there. You have Jamie Collins who's kicking around, and there's a whole bunch of other people on that defense that are somewhat capable. Obviously, Matt Patricia has been kind of criticized for his defensive knowings, and their three losses have come kind of at the hands of the defense in some regard. But Detroit's a good team. Like if you put that, I'm telling you, if they were in the AFC, it would be a lot different of a narrative. But they could get hot. You look at their schedule. There's a couple rough games sprinkled in, but we talked about last week how we don't know what the Colts are. That's their next game. If they beat Indy, Ryan, I'm fully buying in. But I'm like almost there right now. In the Falcons, I told you, I'm telling you, Ryan, the Falcons have a way of reeling you back in. No matter how many times they lose or blow leads or whatever, that's what happened to me. Their late season run last year made me say they were going to go like 9-7 or something. That's clearly not going to happen. They reeled you back in. You said, "Oh, the Falcons suck. I'm never going to like bet on the Falcons or do any of this," and they reeled you back in. That's how like late Sunday morning. That's how they get you. They say, "Oh, well, the Falcons might actually get a win this week. They'll be right back in it." Yeah, that's how they reel you back in every single time. The picture of Arthur Blank down on the sideline was priceless. Kind of sums up what's going on in Atlanta right now. Read an article the other day that said the Patriots should go out and try and get Matt Ryan. I'm fully in on that now. Bring him home, Boston College guy. Bring him back. Really bad loss for the Falcons.
Yeah, Arthur Blank's face kind of mimicked mine because it actually happened at a perfect time too. Because I had a 3-team parlay. I know nobody cares, but I just need to get it off my chest. I had a 3-team parlay. I had the Browns, and they had gotten the touchdown late in the game, so that was good. I had the Bills, and they maybe sweat that one out a lot more than I thought I would, but that was right. And then the Falcons, whatever. But the Lions playoff odds improved by 4.4%, and this is the kind of aspect that I want to go at it at. Right now, they're 25.6% to make the playoffs. The problem is that the NFC East automatically gets a team. If that wasn't the case, I'd be a lot more confident in the Lions. The problem is that right now, the Eagles at 2-4-1, or Washington at 2 and 5 are both guaranteed a chance at the number 4 seed. So right now you have the NFC East team. Green Bay will make it. Tampa Bay will make it. Seattle will make it. So that's 4 teams right there. It's pretty likely that Arizona makes it. It's pretty likely that the Saints make it. And then you have the Bears at 5-1. You have the Rams at 4-2, the 49ers at 4-3. So, Matt, who do the Lions make it in over out of those group of teams?
Well, you got to hope that those NFC West teams continue to beat up on each other. I mean, they haven't really, just in the past week or two, we've started to see them play more within the division because we obviously saw both the 49ers and the Rams play a lot of NFC East opponents over the first couple weeks. So we're starting to get more into divisional battles. Obviously, we saw one last night. We're going to talk about. Um, we're gonna know what Chicago is. I think after tonight, right? On Monday Night Football at LA, we're gonna know what both of those teams are coming out of that game. And remember, Chicago's playing with a backup quarterback, so it's very unlikely that Detroit's going to sneak in over these teams that maybe have a little bit more of a head start. But as I mentioned, Detroit's schedule is favorable for a postseason run, especially with them being 500 right now. That is taking into account that you're going to beat some teams that you kind of weren't supposed to beat, but like Indy, Minnesota, Washington, Carolina, Houston is their next 5 games. That realistically can be 4 wins right there. I really think that is a possibility. It depends like how you play at Carolina, but again, I mentioned Detroit very good on the road this year. It's 3 to 4 wins depending on how you dice it. They got to play better than they did yesterday, but you good teams win the games they're supposed to win, and I think this is a game they were supposed to win. Do I think that they're going to go on this gigantic run and be a juggernaut? No. I want to put that on the record for people who are going to listen and maybe come at me in the group chat. They're not going to go on this magical run. But I think they could win some games. Call me crazy. I'm sure there's a team that you're like this with, Ryan, in the NFL, but you're telling me if they don't beat the Colts, they're not in a good position. Because then it's Minnesota, Washington, Carolina, Houston. Those are, and Washington's pretty decent of a team. These are good teams. I'm not saying they're bad teams, but Detroit has talent. It's just, the coach is the issue. But
their week 1 game against Chicago right now is really a big, that was a big loss. If they were able to not choke that one away, both of those teams would be 4-2 right now, and Detroit would have the tiebreaker.
And mind you, also, they beat, sorry to cut you off, they beat Arizona. They probably should have beaten New Orleans. Remember, they were up in that game by multiple scores. So you might say, well, why is Matt so high on the Lions? They're the Lions. But if you go back and look at their games, I mean, they could realistically be what the Bears are right now, right? At 5-1. They could realistically be at that number. They were never going to beat the Packers, throwing that game away. I think they could have realistically won the Bears and Saints games because I don't think either of those two teams are really top tier in the NFC this year. I think New Orleans was my Super Bowl pick, but after seeing what they've done over the past couple of weeks and what's happened with Michael Thomas, and now they're without Sanders, I mean, they're not a complete football team. So they, telling you, they kind of, shot themselves in the foot with a couple of those games, but 5-1 would have been a lot different script.
I'll say this, they almost need to win. I'll say 4 out of the next 5, but I honestly, I think they probably need to win their next 5 because their December schedule is not very easy. You have the game against the Bears in Chicago. You play Green Bay, Tennessee, Tampa Bay. That'll be a very tough stretch. But if they are able to get some momentum going into that stretch of games, maybe then we're talking about something different. but it's
You go 4-1, you're 7-4 going into the Chicago game, right? So then between Chicago, Green Bay, say you go 1-3, that puts you. All right, let's see if I could do this grade A math here. That puts you at 8-7, right? 8-7 going into the last week of the season against Minnesota. And I hope that math is correct, but that puts you in a position to go 9-7, which I think 9-7 might be the number for that last spot in the NFC. That puts you right there. And that'll, I mean, one thing that hurts is they don't have the tiebreaker right now over Chicago. They don't have the tiebreaker over New Orleans. And those are going to be teams that they're going to be fighting with. So that game at Chicago is going to be really big in terms of tiebreaker scenarios. But I like 8-7 going into week 17. It could be enough, but again, like I said, we're gonna really know after Monday Night Football what the rest of the NFC looks like, because we talked about Chicago, we talked about the Rams. Now we get a head-to-head matchup to see who's really good and who's really the fraud out of these two teams. So Detroit needs to win Sunday, though. If they win Sunday, I'm riding the Matt Patricia train as far as it takes me.
the train that you have not been riding for a while is the Baker Mayfield train. And Baker Mayfield just proved you wrong yesterday. He started off 0 for 5 with an interception, Matt, but then he went off and he led the Browns to a come from behind win in a game that it did not look like they were in a very good position, but Baker Mayfield led them back. They did lose Odell Beckham Jr. to a torn ACL, but we're not going to talk about that right now. The Cleveland Browns 5-2. They beat the Bengals. I will give credit to Joe Burrow. He played well. He
I
looked
thought
good.
he outplayed Baker.
Baker Mayfield he bounced back. I said, listen, I said that after the Steelers game, he had a bad game, but he bounced back against Cincinnati. And now you look at this Browns team, Matt. They got some winnable games coming up, baby. They got the Raiders, Texans, Eagles, Jaguars. That could be 4 wins right there. This could be a 9-2 Cleveland Browns team in a month, if you can believe that. How crazy is that?
All right, Ryan. So I'm going to debunk this entire segment here.
Oh,
Who
no.
did they beat? Who did they beat?
They beat a feisty Cincinnati Bengals team in an AFC North
All
matchup.
right, and what is Cincinnati's record?
It's 1-5-1, but it could be better.
Okay, all right. And you said Baker Mayfield was great, right?
He started off a little
You can
slow.
make the argument. You can make the argument he was outdueled by a rookie quarterback. And you could say, oh, well, Baker threw for 5 touchdowns. Yeah, but Burrow, as a rookie, threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. You can make the case he got outplayed by Burrow. And Baker, obviously, I'm not taking away what he did. He made the throws he was supposed to with no timeouts, went down the field, won the game for him. That's great. But you shouldn't, if you're a 5-2 team, Ryan, you shouldn't need a last second play to beat the Cincinnati Bengals, right? And this is a week after getting absolutely blasted by the Steelers. So now it's like, well, maybe the Browns are kind of frauds, and here we are, and they barely beat the Bengals, Ryan. So
they
lost their best receiver,
A win is a win. I think it showed a lot of fight in that team.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. You got to beat the teams you're supposed to, but at the same time, let's not sit here and crown them as this juggernaut of a team. I mean, Baker he played well, but I think they gotta show me more. They still have gotten blown out by the 2 teams that are better than them. So they got to beat a team that's good, honestly. And they'll have their chance. I think this week will be a really good test against the Raiders. They could beat the Raiders, Ryan. Maybe I'll scale back my doubt. Can we make an agreement on that?
They have 3 straight home games and a bye week sandwiched in, so they don't have to go anywhere until November 29th, which is if they were ever going to get some momentum heading into the final month of the season, this is going to be a great way to do it. Right now, their playoff odds are at 63.5%. So they're third right now in the AFC North. You take a look at the AFC, at 5-2, they've put themselves in a good position. It'd be pretty hard for them to mess it up. But I mean, it is Cleveland. We've seen that before. So I don't uh I don't know. I think that this is finally the year that they make it in. I mean, you got Miami at 3-3. You
That's
have
it. You got Miami at 3-3. That's it. You don't need
well
to go
this
any
I'll
deeper.
say this
I'm not
this
even going to include, not even going to include the team in New England. You got Miami. That's it.
well and then I'll say that the Raiders are 3-3, so this is going to be a big game coming up because it's the difference between Cleveland improving to 6-2 and the Raiders falling one game below 500 as opposed to Cleveland falling to 5-3 and the Raiders going to 4-3. Like that could be huge, especially then if the Raiders get that tiebreaker with the win. So I mean, this game, it's not the season. Obviously, they can win other games, but this game coming up, it's as you said, it'll be a good test for them because this actually has some implications. So we'll see. I mean, I've been high on Cleveland all year, so hopefully they prove me right. I hope that for that city and that franchise and all the fans, they are able to make the playoffs this year. But listen, they put themselves in a good position to do it. We'll have to wait and see if they can keep it going. That'll be the big thing. Um, the other, I guess, yeah, we'll go with this one. The other team, the AFC North, that played yesterday, a matchup of two undefeated teams. So there are three undefeated teams going into the day yesterday. All of them lost, or two of them lost, I should say. The one that did win improved to 6-0, and the Steelers defeated the Tennessee Titans 27-24. There was a text in our group chat that said the Titans, I don't remember if he called him a fraud. I don't remember if he said they were overrated. I think that was a bit much. The Titans started off slow, but I still think they put up a good performance. But the Steelers are really starting to prove themselves as one of the top contenders in the entire league, definitely the AFC. Ben Roethlisberger has looked good. He's not trying to do everything himself. He's kind of just letting his receivers do the work and work in space, which is that's not a bad thing. It's working for him. It seems like Mike Tomlin's pushing all the right buttons. That defense looks pretty good, if I do say so myself. And the Steelers now are the best team in the AFC right now at 6-0. Their playoff odds 97.2%. They have a 30% chance of being the number one seed. So, which is of course a lot bigger this year because only the one seed gets the bye. So Matt, I guess that this Steelers team is for real. I didn't know what to make of them after the first 4 weeks, but they've really proven me wrong. They look like a contender this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also helps that they played 4 of their 6 games at home, so you're really able to kind of establish things without really having to go, far. And this will be a tough stretch. So this was game 1 of a 3-game road swing. So next week you're going to play at Baltimore, which will be a fantastic game. Which, sidebar, the fact that that's at 1 o'clock, and this is probably a CBS protected game, Ryan, but the fact that that's not on Sunday Night Football, but the Cowboys and Eagles is kind of crazy to think. But regardless, Pittsburgh, you mentioned the work the receivers are doing. I think that's what makes them so hard to stop. And this is kind of the same core that they've had for a couple of years, right? And they bring in Claypool, obviously, in the draft and a couple other guys, and Ebron recently. But this is a team that's been riddled with injuries over the past 2 to 3 seasons. And they were still able in those years to kind of mount late runs to either to make the playoffs or sneak, pretty close or make some noise at the end of the season. And now everyone's healthy and they're in a really good position. And their schedule, they're going to have some tough games, but definitely helps to be 6-0, especially in this division, especially as we talked about the Browns, the fact they're 5-2, 5-1 Baltimore. I think their defense is really the real reason. Obviously, Tennessee kind of came back yesterday, but I think that's more of a testament to Tennessee that you can't hold down a good team for very long. Uh, I don't think Tennessee's frauds, by the way. Whoever, I must have missed that text in our group chat, Ryan. They're not frauds. They. I want to talk for a second. I'm going to spin zone this around, or not spin zone. I'm going to spin this around to Tennessee. Is it bad, Ryan, that when Gostkowski lined up for that game tying field goal, that I knew he was going to miss that? Is it bad that I knew that?
No, I think it's just the reputation that he's built himself now. I mean, obviously he was very good for a long time, but now it's
Ever
inconsistent.
ever since he missed the extra point in Denver in the AFC Championship game, he's not been the same kicker. I was kind of surprised he missed that though, that one specifically. But at the same time, I kind of knew it going in, which is why if you're Tennessee, that's probably the one thing they've missed. They didn't really have a kicker last year either. And people who kind of overlook this position, this is why you will pay a premium to have a Justin Tucker or Harrison Butker on your team, so you don't have scenarios like this, or like a Zane Gonzalez. Obviously, he missed one last night, but he redeemed himself. But Tennessee, that'll be something to keep an eye on. Pressure kicks for Gostkowski have not been his strong suit. But yeah, Pittsburgh, Ryan, I think they're going to blow out the Ravens next week. I really do. Like I think we, and I talked about this, I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever the Ravens played last, I think we finally figured out how to defend Lamar Jackson, at least somewhat. And I think Pittsburgh's defense is like next level. And that's not a disrespect to Lamar, but I think Pittsburgh's going to win by double digits next week.
So the text message, just so we're all clear, not gonna say the name, but person said Titans are frauds, and then I responded, "Whoa." So I think it's a shame that Fox has the late game next week, or not the late game, the game of the week, because I would much rather watch Pittsburgh and Baltimore at 4:25 instead of San Francisco and Seattle. I mean, I know that you can't account for everything, but it's a shame that CBS won't get the game of the week next week. But yeah, I mean, I think the Titans will be fine. I mean, I think I said this last week. I wasn't high on them going into the year, but they've proven me wrong, and their loss yesterday doesn't change any of that. I still thought that for the most part, I mean, they started off slow, as I said, but I think that they'll be fine. Um, I, I, I said that there's, I think, 2.5, 3.5 contenders in the AFC, and I kind of have the Titans as that half team. Just I need to. I'm not fully bought in, but I do think that they're very good. I think that they will be. I think that they'll be there at the end, and I think they definitely have that potential. But the Steelers are now the lone undefeated team in the National Football League at 6-0. But as Matt said, they're going to have this 3-game road swing. They got 2 more road games left. Although, man, their upcoming schedule is easy, huh?
Yeah,
Wow,
very. That
that's
Cowboys
crazy.
game got a lot easier. Cincinnati, Jacksonville. It's really 3 easy games sandwiched between the Ravens games. And then even after that, Washington, Buffalo, who I think they'd blow out. Since like I don't think they're going to play in a lot of close games here. Like, is that kind of like a hot take of me to say, Ryan? Like Baltimore, they might lose one of the Baltimore games, but like Buffalo can't keep up offensively with what Pittsburgh has.
This team might go 13-3. I think
The
that's very
the
realistic.
the lowest scoring game for Pittsburgh is 26 points, Ryan. The Patriots probably have that in the past 4 games combined, or 3 games combined. Like, I don't think we talk about the defense. Their offense might be one of the best in the league. Like, just in terms of sheer production. I
They
mean,
just have so many options.
26, 26, 28, 38, 38, 27. So that's why I say a lot of these games, Baltimore's a really good team, but I don't know if they could keep up with this offense. And granted, some of these points might be like a pick six or like a defensive play that sets them up with an easy possession. But regardless, that's why it's complementary football. Defense leads right into the offense, and then they go down and score. It's yeah. I think 13-3 might be underselling it, Ryan. Like 14-2, like they're going to be really good. And we should also take into account they get to play the NFC East. They're not playing a first place schedule. But again, they can't control the games they play. They can only control how they play against the teams that they play. And they're 6-0. So
I'll say this: it makes me feel a lot better about the Eagles, knowing that they were probably a competent linebacker away from maybe giving this team a loss. So it makes me
they
feel
have a
pretty good.
competent linebacker. He just wasn't on the field.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah, he was sitting there. He's wearing number 54. He's waiting to get in. He's telling you, Ryan. They put him in. That solves all your problems. Guy's a machine.
I've been seeing him more on TV as the weeks go by, just because he's on obviously special teams, but it's still weird. It's always weird, just like, wow, I went to high school.
Joe Buck said his name.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
that was Joe Buck said his name.
It's like, wow, I never would have expected that. But
yeah. Sean Bradley, everybody, gonna be a really solid linebacker in the future.
Let's see, what game do we want to? I mean, so we'll talk about Dallas and Washington. Because we kind of got on the NFCs there for a second. This game, so Washington won 25-3. It wasn't so much that this game was a good one, because it wasn't. It was a train wreck from the very beginning when Dalton got fumbled, safety. It just that set the tone for the entire game. He was the target of a cheap shot from John Bostic, and then Bostic got what's the word? Ejected. I was going to say expelled.
That would have worked. That would have worked.
And so Dalton got a nasty, I have to imagine it was a concussion. So he had to leave the game. And then in entered a guy that most people probably never heard of before yesterday, Ben DiNucci. Great name. So now the Cowboys are down to their third string quarterback. And Matt, I think their season's just about over. The offensive line is bad. The defense is historically bad. The special teams are bad. The quarterback now is bad. Ezekiel Elliott looks bad. The coaching staff is very bad. This entire team looks really bad. But good, you know what? Washington, they've put themselves right in the division hunt. 2-5, half a game out. They have let me take a look here. They have a 24.5% chance to make the playoffs. Second best in the NFC East. I think they have the best DVOA in the NFC East. It's funny. I'm looking at the mean wins right now. So right now, the mean wins for the Eagles are 6.8. Washington's 5.8. Dallas is 5.4. And the Giants are 4.7. So let me ask you this, Matt. Can Washington make a run? Can Washington get to 6 wins?
Absolutely. I thought this, so I'm going to lead this off and then circle back to this point. I said the Cowboys might be and actually are the worst team in this division. I'm going to circle back to that take. I think that was before the Andy Dalton injury. I'm going to circle back to the Cowboys. The Washington football team, Ryan, between bringing in Jason Wright, to kind of fix the front office, you bring in Ron Rivera to take care of football operations. Mind you, Ron Rivera just finished up treatment for cancer today, right? Mm-hmm. And the man is coaching with cancer, and he's out there, and he's always been one of my favorite coaches. And I'm so happy they got the win yesterday, and I was really happy to see that news today. They got to ring the bell and everything. I think, and you, I don't know if you'll agree with me, Ryan. I think Washington, in maybe, I'll say 3 to 4 years, right? I'll play it conservatively. 3 to 4 years, they're going to be the best team in this division. Just in terms of the guy Rivera is, the reputation he has, what they're starting to build. And they have some young, talented players. And their defense is actually pretty good, right? Especially their front seven. It's it's pretty good. Excuse the voice crack. It's pretty good. Um, and Antonio Gibson, I think, could be a competent running back as well. Terry McLaurin obviously had the notable um, speech yesterday in the locker room. Like, I think they're starting to build something. I don't know if you agree. You obviously are more accustomed to these teams than I am, being an Eagles fan, but
Matt, I
I think
think
there's a
all
lot to
this
be excited about.
I think all this team needs is a quarterback. Uh, and
I
that's
agree,
it.
and
It's
maybe a couple offensive weapons too. Like Kyle Allen will get you through this year, but the quarterback options, it's a pretty deep quarterback draft. But I would almost argue to go out and sign a guy. I don't know if you would agree,
I
but
think that yeah, I mean we'll see what their record ends up being. I mean, of course if they don't win the division, they'll have a better chance at drafting a guy if they like him, but I mean, eh, th- I- they're I saw so I was reading a newspaper article today and it said that Washington is the worst organization in sports. And I think for at one point that was true. I don't think that's true right now. I think you can tell that they're making. I need to preface this by saying I understand what without everything that went on before the season started that surrounded this organization. I get that. That's not acceptable. But it seems like they're really trying hard to turn things around. And I think that it's you've said it about Rivera, and I agree to an extent. Um, I I think that Rivera is a good culture guy, and I think that's what Washington need. I said the same thing about Doc Rivers. I think that a guy that can come in and establish a positive team culture, I think especially in the NFL, is huge. And he's been able to do just that. You look at their schedule. The one problem with their schedule, because I think they are going to be in this division race for a while. Um, the problem is that their schedule is kind of backloaded. You have to go at Pittsburgh, at San Francisco, you play Seattle, you play Carolina, and then you finish with the Eagles. That's a tough 5 game stretch to end the season. But if they can just bank some wins over the next several weeks, maybe they're still in the division race in December. Who's to say?
yeah, I mean, they probably should be 3-4. I do agree with the decision by Rivera to go for two last week to beat the Giants. They obviously came up short. Uh, I think I agree that Rivera is a good culture guy, but I also think he's a good coach overall. I know you wouldn't go as far as I would, but I think seeing he was part of the winningest era in Carolina Panthers history, and more and like successful kind of stints there. Him and Cam Newton, obviously. Um, I think there, and we obviously you mentioned it too. What went on in the off season, but I name dropped Jason Wright, a guy who I think uh, is really kind of making efforts to change the front office and the organizational sides of things. And then you have Rivera. That combination will be really good. And obviously, the division itself, Ryan, they're going to be in it just because of the fact that it's the NFC East. So I think if you're a Washington football fan, there's a lot to be excited about. And the defense is there. I agree. They're probably a quarterback and a playmaker away from being like a I got to be careful with my words here because like a watchable team, right? Because right now, no one's really going to tune in for a Washington football game, but they're getting there. And I think, obviously not having a single primetime game kind of attributes to the lack of confidence people had in this team. But I think next year that number might go up a bit. I'm going to circle back now. The Cowboys suck. Cowboys fans, where are you at now? And obviously Andy Dalton was a victim of a cheap shot. We're going to take into account his performance before that point, right? I want to preface by saying that. Where are the people that were saying they were better off with him than Dak Prescott? Where are they now, Ryan? They were quiet yesterday on Twitter, the Cowboy fans in general. Not again, there's a lot. I know a lot of Cowboy fans, Ryan, and none of them were on Twitter yesterday during this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think now we're kind of seeing how much Dak carried this garbage team. Um, and it's you could I always see the argument, oh, he puts up all his numbers in garbage time, this and that. That's not true. It's really not. Um, Dak, I think it's very clear now, elevated this entire I might say organization, because it seems like without him, and listen, I know they have other injuries and stuff, but without him, this is just a mess. I said it in the group chat, and I really mean it. I think that they should fire McCarthy today. I did not like the hire at the time, and I think very clearly now it's obvious that he can't be a head coach in this league. He's just not very good. He wasted away a lot of Aaron Rodgers' best years, and now this entire team around him is just crumbling. And listen, I said, I get that there's injuries, and they're not, insubstantial injuries. They're pretty major, but at the same time, I mean, the Eagles are dealing with injuries too, and they're moving along just fine at 2-4-1 as the division leaders. So I don't, I don't know. You tried to make the point that they're the worst team in the division, and I, I might be there. I think that the
Like,
Giants are probably a touch better.
especially after the way the Giants played Thursday. And you have to remember too, the Giants are now fully healthy, excluding Saquon, right? So they bring back Sterling Shepard. Now Jones has a full complement of receivers. Obviously doesn't have his best running back, but the Cowboys, what do they present offensively? DiNucci or Dalton, regardless of who it is, like what are they going to do? And obviously, I don't really know. And Cowboy fans, if you're listening, you could chime in, shoot us a text or something. I don't really know how fans felt about McCarthy when they hired him. Like I'm not really in touch with their fan base, but like he's clearly not the guy, Ryan. Like this is like as an outsider looking in, it's clearly not it. And the argument of, well, Dak Prescott got a lot of numbers in garbage time. Well, maybe it's because their defense let up so many points that by the time Dak went out there, it was 17-0, and he's got to go out there and score points. Like I think the stakes were so unfairly high for Dak, but so unfairly low for Mike McCarthy and everyone else. And I know Jerry doesn't like to fire coaches a lot, because it's a bad look. But I think that, and I don't know how you see this, Ryan. I think Mike McCarthy might turn into another Jason Garrett, of just a guy who's been there longer than he should.
I don't think Jerry does that. I mean this in the nicest way possible. Jerry's not the youngest guy in the world. I'd like to think that he's kind of realizing that. And if he wants to see another Super Bowl title before, then he, I'd like to think he's smart enough to make a change after this year. I think he had some loyalty to Garrett that I don't think he'll have with McCarthy. So I don't think that organization will be afraid to just kick that entire coaching staff out to the curb after the season. At least I hope not. And then maybe they'll actually bring in a good head coach that isn't, incompetent. Like there's a reason why McCarthy was away from the league for a year. It wasn't because he was learning and trying to improve. It was because nobody wanted him. And that's that.
Let
People
me
could say,
pose. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, actually, go ahead. What are you
I'm
going
going to
to pose?
pose a hypothetical to you, and tell me how many wins this Cowboys team gets with this hypothetical. You ready for this? Resign Dak and bring in Eric Bieniemy to be the head coach. How many games does that team win?
This year?
Well, next year, assuming they somewhat get healthy on defense and maybe draft a piece or two and re-sign Dak.
Next year, if they do exactly that, they're probably, I'd say an 11-win team. I want to see. I forget what division they play next year, but I'd say because they're going to have an easier schedule because they're going to finish. They might finish last in this division this year, so they might have a fourth place schedule next year. They play the NFC North. They play. Oh well, no, they play the AFC West, right? Yeah, they play the AFC West. Okay, and the NFC South. Yeah, they play the AFC North and the AFC South. Okay, or AFC redo, AFC West and NFC South. That's um that's probably a 10-11 win team. You just get, as you said, a couple pieces on defense. You re-sign your quarterback. You get in a new coaching staff that knows. By the way, I just learned that their mascot's name is Rowdy. I didn't know that. You because you have a lot of talent on the offensive side. The Zeke contract, I think, is really gonna. I really, for that organization's sake, hope that he's not falling apart because he has not looked good. I get the offensive line is bad, but he has not looked good at all. But if he can bounce back next year and you're a little better with the health, that's a I'm not going to say Super Bowl contender, but that's a playoff contender easily.
Like I would love to ask Cowboy fans what they think of Dak Prescott now, and like if they would re-sign him, because like I don't know like what other option. Like clearly Andy Dalton is not an NFL starting quarterback anymore. You say, oh well, the victim of a cheap shot. I get that, but they weren't doing anything before that.
Nope.
They scored 3 points against the Washington football team. And I know I just talked them up, but in the same, breath, this was a Cowboys team that was not even in the same league as this team coming into the year. People were picking the Cowboys to go deep into the playoffs. So
I was one of them.
I think we really need to sit there and say Dak is obviously the most valuable player on this team. And, fairness, they have a lot of injuries, but I don't know. It's going to be a rough year for Cowboys fans. I think they're bottom in that division.
So I just want to say from the time that Prescott got injured, which was early in the third quarter of the game against the Giants, the offense has scored 7, 8, 9, 10. Great podcasting. 13. They've scored 23 points in, what would that be? When did Dalton, that was what, third quarter yesterday he got injured?
Yeah.
So that would be 4, 5, 6, 7. So they scored, what, 23 points, I think, in 8 quarters, 26 points, something around there. That's not good. That is really bad. So I agree with you, Matt. I hope people kind of understand how good Dak is now, because clearly that he makes that offense go. And if you disagree, you're wrong. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. You're wrong. I'm willing to say, I'm willing to concede on some things, but if you don't think that Dak makes that offense go, you're just stop. I'm just going to let that silence hang in the air just for a second. The Panthers and the Saints, Matt, put on a good game. The Panthers covered, but the Saints did come out with a win. Drew Brees was without Emmanuel Sanders. He was without Michael Thomas, but it didn't matter. They still pulled out the win. I'm still not fully sold on the Saints. But you know what? I think, if anything, I walked away from this game more impressed with what the Panthers are doing this year in Matt Rule's first year. This team continues to impress me week in and week out, even though they didn't get the W. I think that they're building something good in Carolina. And I think that was more my takeaway from this game. I mean, I get that the Saints now are 4-2. They're trying to keep up with Tampa Bay. But I think I was left more impressed with the Panthers, who, if they're another team, if they were in the AFC, you could say that they'd still be in the race for a playoff spot. And I guess technically they still are in the NFC, but it's going to be a lot tougher. But I think that they'll be pretty good in the future. They're another team like Washington. You just get some more pieces in there. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the NFC.
I was not so big on Matt Rule when they hired him. I will admit where I was wrong. I also picked them to go 2-14 this year. I was wrong about that.
They could go 3 and
Um,
13.
I think Teddy Bridgewater is clearly the right guy they brought in there. Worth every penny they paid him. They gave him some weapons, and I think this is one thing that a lot of teams don't do when you bring in a quarterback, whether it be through the draft or free agency. A lot of teams forget to put weapons around him, and they managed to do that. They obviously have DJ Moore, who was there. They bring in Robbie Anderson. You're starting to discover Mike Davis as a capable running back in the absence of McCaffrey. So I agree, Carolina will be a good team. Ryan, I don't think the Saints have not showed me a complete football game this year. Like just from all three phases of the game, just a complete total performance. And as someone who has watched their defense a lot because they're on my fantasy team, I've it makes me kind of wonder what that's going to look like down the road, and whether or not they have the pieces to keep up with it offensively. They're obviously going to get Sanders and Thomas back eventually. I hope, as someone who has Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders on respective teams. But I don't know. Something about it. I can't figure out what it is with New Orleans, Ryan, but they just don't have it. They're not. I don't know. And at the beginning of the year, I thought they were the best team in the NFC. I thought they were going to kind of run through the league, but I don't know. I don't think they have something. I don't know if you know what it is, but I've been trying to figure that out.
I do want to say what the Panthers did at the end of the game yesterday was a little questionable. Um, so Bridgewater took a sack and it left them kind of essentially out of field goal range. It brought up a fourth and very long. So instead of going for it, the Panthers opted to send Joey Sly out for a 65-yard field goal, which would obviously be the record. And I mean, Sly has a big leg, but I don't know what the math was. Actually, here it is right now. It was 4th and 19. So the probability of making the field goal was 2.4%, and the probability of converting the 4th and 19 was 8.1%. I'd almost rather take a chance on 4th and 19 because, as I said, Sly has a big leg, but you can't expect your kicker to make a 65-yard field goal. And at that point, that would have tied the game because the Saints were then able to just run out the clock. But that's something that I disagree with. I think at that point, what I mean, you're the Carolina Panthers. You have no expectations going into the season. What harm is it going to do to your team? Just go for it on 4th and 19. You have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. You have a quarterback that can do stuff off schedule, roll out of the pocket, make something happen with his legs, buy some time, wait for someone to get open. So I don't know. I don't understand why they didn't. I mean, you would have probably gone for it at that in that situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sly only missed it by like a yard or two, but in the same breath, I would have probably, as someone who is on the other side of the math, since we had this debate a couple weeks ago, obviously that was 4th and 1 instead of 4th and 19. I would have probably just left the offense on the field. You have two really good deep threats in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So I at that point, like a 65-yard field goal, I've seen more 4th and 19s converted than 65-yard field goals. So by that nature, I would have went for it.
The Panthers' playoff odds dropped 8.2% with the loss. If they won, obviously they would be ahead of the Saints right now. They'd be 4-3. Saints would be 3-3. But what are you going to do? It's just the way of the road, as I like to say. And yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at this. We'll get off the Saints in a second, but like you look at their schedule. Week 1 against the Buccaneers, I was more left with the impression that the Buccaneers didn't look very good as opposed to the Saints dominated. then they lose 2 straight games. You go down early against the Lions, and you have to claw your way back. You go down early against the Chargers, you have to claw your way back. And then this Panthers game, you only win by 3 points. So it's let me ask you this. Is there a scenario that you see where they miss the playoffs?
Yeah.
Because right
I
now they're
just
4-2.
they should have they realistically could be under 500. I mean, Justin Herbert was a couple plays away from beating them. They should have. I mean, if Detroit was, had any other coach, you could probably make the argument that's a loss. The Buccaneers game, Ryan, and I'm glad you mentioned it. It's their only double-digit win of the year. That remember too, that was the first game with basically an entirely new offense, with a lot of moving parts, a lot of guys hurt, new quarterback, new vibe. So I expected something like that to happen. But like their schedule is really hard. You're going to play Chicago, whatever. I think Chicago could probably win an ugly game there. Tampa Bay, San Francisco, you get lucky that you get Falcons, Broncos, Falcons, but then you get the Eagles and Chiefs, which will be a tough back to back. So, like, I think that they are good enough to beat the teams they should, but do I think they're a playoff caliber team right now? I mean, like, is that hard to say? Like, obviously by that point they would have Thomas theoretically, and Sanders back, but they're just not. They're missing something. I don't know what it is. They're just not like I watched Seattle play last night, Ryan. I watched Pittsburgh play. Obviously, it's in a different conference, but I watch teams like that play, and I don't put New Orleans in that same category anymore. They were at the beginning of the year, but they're not anymore. So like they're like a tier 2 contender right now in my eyes.
Right now, they have a 71.4% chance to make it to the playoffs. But I would have to say I'm not confident that they can make it. There's teams that I'm more confident would make it over them as of right now. And listen, that could change, but as of right now, I'm probably out on the Saints. Um, Jacksonville and Los Angeles was a game that I did not think we would be talking about, but that's just how the game ended up going, that it made sense to talk about it just because of what happened. Um, Justin Herbert, so you want to talk about takes in the group chat? Somebody texted that Justin Herbert is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. I think we need to take a step back, but I will say he's looked, I keep saying this every week, he looks way better than I thought he would coming into the NFL. Like, this is not the Justin Herbert that I watched at Oregon. This is the Justin Herbert where people talked about all the tools and all the talent that he had. This is him. Like, you can see all of the positives that people had about him coming out of college and very few of the negatives so far. So he led this Chargers team to a win. They're now 2-4. You can make the argument that they could probably have a better record and be in striking distance of a playoff spot, but because of the way they started the season, they might be out. But Matt, this Chargers team. I mean, they've once again they're dealing with injuries on both sides of the ball. It seems to be a yearly occurrence with them. They lose big name players and important players. But I think the Chargers found their guy. And I don't think that Anthony Lynn will be the head coach to get the most out of this team. But I think if you get a new head coach, if you get, they're another team, you get a new couple more pieces, this is going to be a very good team. I mean, they're going to have to go up against the Chiefs in the AFC West every year, but I think the Chargers might kind of return to relevance a lot quicker than people thought. At least I thought.
Well, see, a lot of people thought that the team in this kind of scenario would have been the Broncos, right? With Drew Lock and their young receiving core, but Justin Herbert is electric. It was kind of like I've been on both sides of the Herbert debate, so I've kind of I see both sides. Imagine Ryan. So this guy's like our age, right? Imagine your first couple NFL games on 5 minutes notice that you're going to play against Patrick Mahomes, then Teddy Bridgewater, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees, right? So he was 0-4 to start his NFL career. But again, going to reiterate against Patrick, sorry, Mrs. Mahomes, Teddy Bridgewater, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. And you want to know how, and he lost all of those games, Ryan, by one possession or less, which is something that I think a lot of people kind of get lost. So a lot of the people who kind of sit there and break down won't go past the record. But when you look at the games, they were right there in every single game, and they had a chance in every single game. And I mean, the Buccaneers game, they were up by multiple possessions in the first half too, and then obviously Tom kind of went crazy in the second half. But they're a good team, and I agree. I think I like Anthony Lynn, but I think he's a little too conservative at times for a team that has a weapon like Herbert is. I also want to give credit to Kenyan Allen. I think he's one of the best receivers in the league. Obviously, he is, to begin with, but just what he's been able to do with Herbert, they're forming a connection. Yeah, this team's going to be good. Maybe not this year. It'll make noise this year, but if they go out in the draft and draft a couple pieces, they'll be spicy next year. They will be. I am really, and you got to think too. I know this is kind of silly to say, but the change in uniforms. Obviously, we talked about uniforms very early on in the show. They obviously will make it. If you have fast uniforms, you're going to be in good shape. They look like they have fast uniforms. I don't know.
They have the best new uniforms in the league this year. I said that when they dropped, and I'll continue to say it.
They nailed it. They 100% nailed it. And people who say that's not a factor, that obviously is true. But like, if you're a player and you go out there and like you're feeling good, like look good, feel good, play good, like I'm kind of it's a little tiny factor, but regardless, they were really competitive in every game, Ryan. Every single game they've played.
I'm gonna bang my fist on the table right here. The Chargers are making the playoffs. I'm gonna call it right now. I'm gonna write it in Sharpie.
They're your Lions.
Look at their upcoming schedule. It is beyond easy. You get Denver, the Raiders, Miami, the Jets. You do have to go to the Bills. I don't know how tough of a game that is. I think Herbert can keep them competitive. New England, Atlanta, the Raiders again, Denver, and the end of the season with the Chiefs. I could see a scenario where over their next 9 games they go 8-1.
Yeah, and you're saying Buffalo is the lone loss?
I think they could be, but I also think that based on what I've seen this Chargers team do, I think that they could beat the Bills.
I think it ultimately. So the Chargers have always been this good team in our lifetime, but like they just have like these weird, goofy special teams mishaps or like one mental error. Like it's usually execution is what it comes down to with the Chargers. And it's going to be kind of hard to not go out and execute against these teams, right? And originally, Patriots fan, I know we're going to talk about them soon, but like Patriots fans still think that the Chargers is a win on the schedule. I don't know what offense is going to keep up with Justin Herbert, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Obviously, that's in December, but like I think Denver might be a tough trap game. I think that Justin Herbert is better than Drew Lock. I'll go out and say that.
I agree.
I think the Denver's offense is just a big play offense. I don't think they could really sustain drives like Herbert can. So that'll be a win. Vegas and Miami is an underrated tough back-to-back. And that's going to – so those two games, Vegas and Miami, is going to really kind of separate who's going to be in contention for that last spot in the AFC. So, yeah, I mean – you know what? You were supportive of my Detroit take, so I will be supportive of your Chargers take. So 8-1, maybe not, but I think they can make a run 100%. I mean, it helps that you still get to play the Jets and Falcons, so that's a plus.
Meanwhile, on the other side, Jacksonville, after their surprising Week 1 win over the Colts, have now dropped 6 straight. The team has let up 30 or more points in each of their 6 losses. The offense has not been able to keep up. scoring 16 or less in 3 of those games. They have a bye this week. Do you fire Doug Marrone, or do you just keep him in the tank and fire him at the end of the year?
Well, he was a guy that could have went last year, and
I
they
agree.
kept him. It's so crazy, Ryan, how Adam Gase, and I know I'm not making this a Jets segment, but like how he is still coaching an NFL team. And I think Doug Marrone will be another guy that goes before him. I don't think it really matters either way. I mean, I'm kind of not in the mindset of keeping or of firing a guy mid-season because I don't think it really does anything. If you're in a tank for Trevor mode, this will be a prime position to do it to keep him. But if you're going into the bye, I think Marrone goes. I think he's the next one to go before Gase. So it's I saw people saying the bench Minshew. I don't really know what that accomplishes either. Um, I think if you're Trevor Lawrence, you would much rather go to Jacksonville than to the Jets because Jacksonville at least has some weapons. So it's I know you're a big Minshew guy. I don't really think the bench calls should be there.
I'll say this:
I
it makes sense to bench him if they go to the Oregon State guy. It doesn't make sense to bench him if you just want to let Mike Glennon throw a ball around like a pickup game. You know what Mike Glennon is, all right? Like he should not be seeing the field on a team like this. I get it. So if it was like a team like Dallas, right, and Dak goes out, okay, well that makes sense. But you don't bench Minshew just to bring in Mike Glennon. That doesn't do anything. There's no point to that. But if it
well,
is the guy, if they want to see what they have in the guy from Oregon State, okay, I can understand that. You want to see if he can do stuff at the NFL level. I get that, but not for Mike Glennon.
yeah, Cowboy fans will probably sit there and say that Mike Glennon is better than Dak Prescott as well.
Let me ask you a trivia
Yeah,
question. What are the 5 teams Mike Glennon has been on the past 5 seasons?
Chicago, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville. Um, great radio right now. Let me look at all the NFL team logos here so I could see. I'm going to go with Vegas. Um, hmm. I need one more, Ryan. Let's
Yep,
see.
just one more.
I got the 4 right though so far.
Yep, you got
Buffalo. Give me Buffalo.
no.
Ah,
You got the Raiders. You got Jacksonville. What else did you say?
Tampa,
Yep,
and then obviously Jacksonville.
Tampa, Jacksonville, Raiders.
I think I missed. Oh, Chicago. I said Chicago.
Yeah, that was the other team said. Yeah, so you're missing just one. He
Cleveland,
played
maybe.
no, he played 2 games that year. He threw the ball 21 times.
Did he start those 2 games?
No.
Um, the Jets. I don't know.
Arizona.
I was okay. I could see that. Was
That
that
was
the Sam
Josh
Bradford year too?
that was Josh Rosen's rookie year.
Oh, oh, is that why they started with? It's a mess. It's funny. That guy is just not good. Um, I got 4 of the 5 right. I'll
That's
take
good.
that. But I think if there's any time to fire Marrone, it would be today or within the next 48 hours. He's in a bye week, then you could say, all right, guys, reset button. But Trevor Lawrence, this would be a great destination for him. You look at the weapons they have, Chenault, who I really like, Chark, Robinson, who's proven to be an NFL quality player, Tyler Eifert for whatever that's worth, but Keelan Cole, they have a pretty decent offensive line, I guess, in terms of just name talent. So I don't know. I think that this will be a better place for Trevor than New York. That's for sure.
Matt, your Patriots got throttled 33-6 by the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm just going to let you talk about your team and what has happened.
what's happened. So I'm going to debunk. This is the episode of debunking. I'm going to debunk a text from our group chat that was kind of a smart remark of saying, "Oh, the Patriots," like quoting Patriots fans, are saying, "Oh, they're better off without Brady." So let's hit the rewind button to last year. Tom Brady, they started 10-1. They've been 4-8 since. They had the same receiving core last year, and arguably for 2 years, but I'll just say for last year, they had the same receiving core, and Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, could not win with that receiving core, right? So this year, with the same guys, clearly no one else can make that work. They can't get any separation, and Cam's just kind of trying to figure out what to do. His picks weren't the greatest interceptions. He forced a couple. He had the traditional Tom Brady pissed off throw down the field to try and generate momentum. That ended up in a pick. Tom loves doing that. Another one was thrown directly at a 49ers cornerback. That was fun. Then all the fan base was saying, put in Stidham. It can't get any worse. So what did Jarrett Stidham do? He threw an interception. Fun fact, Jarrett Stidham has thrown 20 NFL passes. 5 of them are interceptions. So that's a fun number. The offensive line is kind of just a rotating, mess because of injuries and COVID and everything else. The defense, remember everybody, they don't have Patrick Chung. They don't have Dante Hightower. Half the other defense left for Miami and Detroit. So now you're sitting there with the skeleton crew and a lot of rookies. They're not going to stop anything. So it's just like the defense, I will say, will get better as the weeks go on. That's usually what happens with a Bill Belichick team. The offense is, I felt like I was watching like a high school football game at times. It was like I was celebrating a first down at one point. It's just they can't move the ball. I don't remember the last time. Like I couldn't tell you the last touchdown that they scored. And obviously it was last week with Cam Newton, but like they haven't had a good drive. Because last week they kind of came back, but it was in garbage time and whatever. And Denver is not a great team, and they're just not good. And not to say that they won't be good in a couple weeks. I think they could figure things out, but the Patriots really got to sit down and say we need to get weapons offensively, because clearly Jacoby Myers, Demir Bird, Julian Edelman is not the answer. N'Keal Harry, not the answer. I get he got rocked like Andy Dalton did yesterday, but I don't know. I think you look at the schedule, it does get a little easier in the month of December. I think if they could win one of their next 3, then they could win some games down the stretch, maybe get to a respectable number. I don't think playoffs are out of the picture, but a lot of things would have to go right. A lot of wins would have to come to get to that point. But, whatever. I guess, Patriots fans are saying to bench Cam. I don't think Cam's really the guy, but I don't think Jarrett Stidham is either. So you got to give Cam, you're only as good as the weapons you have around you too. I mean, unless you're Tom Brady or Drew Brees or whoever. So Cam's needs some help. It's just that bad. Like, Brian, did you know who Jacoby Myers was until I said his name 2 minutes ago? Or Demir Bird,
I
Ryan Izzo, Dalton Keene. Like, it's not an NFL quality offense.
yeah, I agree. So okay, so let me ask. So, what's your opinion of Bill right now?
There's only so much that coaching can do. It's not Bill's fault.
Okay,
I mean,
but at the same time, he did build the team.
yeah, well, you also have to keep into account that they had the league lead in opt outs. So you can't really prepare too much for that, because that obviously came after the draft. So it, people say, "Oh, it was obviously Tom who won all the Super Bowls and not Bill." Bill's a great head coach. The issue isn't that they just don't have it right now. That's fine. Like you just got to reevaluate, uh, go into the off season, draft some guys, and for the love of God, sign some people that are good offensive weapons. Like I get this kind of money ball philosophy that they've had, but you gotta like it's not Bill's fault. So let's park the bus there. But I don't know. Everyone should take into account what it is, but say, oh well, Tom's performing well. Well, maybe I didn't want a 43-year-old quarterback with this receiving core because you say, oh well, you should have brought Brady back. It'd be a lot better. It'd be the same guys around them. So what's Tom going to do that Cam can't? At least Cam could run around a little bit. Tom can't. So it'd be even worse, right? Am I wrong in saying that? Like
I
it's the
think it
same
was. I
guys
think
last year that got bounced by the Tennessee Titans in the first round. They scored 13 points against the team that barely made the playoffs last year with the same guys. So what's the difference?
I think
Like
it
what is
was
Cam gonna do?
mutually beneficial for both teams to go a different way. Um, I don't think that bring back Brady might mean that this team is 3-3 instead of 2-4, but I think
Yeah,
that's about it.
it would have it at that point. Like at least we have a more dynamic quarterback, which is what gives me hope that they could turn things around somewhat this year. But with that being said, go out and try and get a wide receiver. But clearly that hasn't worked in the past because they spent a second round pick on Sanu last year, and Sanu's not on a team anymore. So I think the issue too is they don't have any tight ends. They have maybe 8 or 9 catches total for tight ends all season, which is, if you guessed, the worst in the league. Yeah, they need to really fix the offense. I'm not worried about the defense. They got gashed yesterday. I will say Kyle Shanahan does not have confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo because they threw the ball east and west way too much
I'm still not
to
sold on the
make me.
49ers.
Not me neither. I mean, you're playing against a defense, and mind you, too, this is the first week of full practice for the Patriots in like 3 weeks. So take that as you will. I think the more consistency that comes, the better this team will get. I don't think they're as bad as they looked yesterday, if that makes sense, but I don't think they're as good as a team that can make the playoffs right now. But if they go out and maybe make a deal, they get a weapon for Cam to utilize, who knows? Maybe, but like at this point right now, they're just not good. But I will say they're like the Chargers. They can make a run up depending on what happens over the next couple weeks.
I will say, from the 49ers perspective, after their Dolphins loss, we looked at their schedule and we said, wow, they have a tough 7 game stretch coming up. It's going to be tough for them to win a lot of games. Well, to their credit, they have won the first 2 games of that 7 game stretch. So they are putting themselves in a better position than they were. And however, you still have to play Seattle and Green Bay. You have to play at New Orleans, and then you still have to play the Rams and the Bills. Now, in hindsight, I'm still not fully sold on the Rams either, so I don't know if that game will be as challenging as I thought it would be, especially after what they did last week, the 49ers did to the Rams. I'm not fully sold on the Saints anymore. I'm not fully sold on the Bills. So that stretch in hindsight, maybe it wasn't as tough as I thought it was, but yeah, I don't know. I still need to see more out of the 49ers. I think you make a good point that Shanahan doesn't fully trust Garoppolo. Um, we'll see maybe if he takes the training wheels off a little bit as the schedule moves on. I don't think that will happen, but
Ryan, he's had the training wheels on his entire time in San Francisco.
well, I will say that if there's this is probably I mean, this is a good spot for Jimmy, I would say, because I mean Shanahan does make his life a lot easier. But I'm sure if off the record, if you talk to Shanny, I'm sure he would want a better option. But
And then people are saying, "Oh, well, you should have kept Garoppolo. Like he would have made the team a big difference." Like for people out there who are going to criticize the Patriots, I welcome it because I criticize them too. Like I watched the game yesterday, and I'm not a lunatic who's going to sit there and say they're a good football team right now, but it's not the quarterback's fault, no matter who you put in there, whether it was Garoppolo, Brady, Cam Newton, Ryan Waldish. No one's going to go out there and win with these guys, these weapons. So maybe the receivers will get better as the weeks go on. Who knows? Maybe they won't. We still got 2 games against the Jets though, Ryan. So 4-12 looks like a real nice number. At least 4 wins. We were guaranteed at least 4 wins. So we're
Two
halfway there.
two teams that have already eclipsed 4 wins in our final game of this episode, the supersized episode, longest episode we've ever done, is the Seahawks and the Cardinals, the Sunday night game that wasn't supposed to be Sunday night, but they flexed it because of the uncertainty around Tampa Bay and Las Vegas. And it not the way it went, I don't think was too surprising. The way it ended was surprising. Of course, the Seahawks can never win a game normally like this. They always have to make it close. And so Tyler Lockett got his third touchdown reception with 6 minutes and 44 seconds left in the fourth quarter. It put the Cardinals up 34-24. So at that point, you would assume a good team would close it out and things would be fine. So the Cardinals get the ball back and they drive down the field, and then it ends up 3 minutes left, 4th and 12. You need a field goal and you need a touchdown. So you go for the points at that point. Zane Gonzalez hit it, but there's a penalty. And then there is another penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct. So you gave the Cardinals a chance to not only stay on the field, but then they took advantage and they got a quick touchdown 40 seconds later. The Seahawks could not run out the clock. They were forced to punt it back to the Cardinals, who quickly got in the field goal range as Zane Gonzalez tied it with no time remaining. And then the way the overtime went, I think, was even more insane. Seahawks were forced to punt after getting some yards early in the drive, which gave the Cardinals a chance to get into field goal range. And Gonzalez missed it after being iced by his own coach. To which, at that point, I think in the group chat said, no, the same person that we've been talking about all day long, said, no way Russ lets them lose this one. And then he threw an interception, his third one of the day, or I guess the night. It was intercepted by Isaiah Simmons, which, I need to say this. I don't know. I really wish he didn't go to Arizona because clearly they don't know how to use him. They haven't been playing him a lot. So I feel bad for him. But then it set the Arizona Cardinals up to get a field goal with 15 seconds left in overtime. So thankfully we avoided another tie this year. And the Cardinals now 5-2, a very strong 5-2, give Seattle their first loss of the season. Matt, I said going into the year that the Arizona Cardinals could be a threat in this division. And clearly, I'm not, you can't see it because my camera battery died, but I'm patting myself on the back. And I think I said that this game against Seattle would be a good measuring stick for the Cardinals, that if they could somehow find a way to pull it out, then maybe this could be the year. And they were able to pull it out. This team that I don't know what to say. I mean, I was a Cardinal supporter going into the year, but I didn't expect 5-2 to start. And you can make the argument that they should probably be undefeated at 7-0.
Yeah, they're a good team. As a Cliff Kingsbury denier initially, him and the Murray experiment, but it's all worked, and they're an exciting team to watch. I think that they're a team that's only going to get better. You have obviously a weapon in DeAndre Hopkins, who, as they integrate him more into what they're doing, and as he develops chemistry with Murray, that's going to really come to fruition. They have Christian Kirk, who's healthy now. They're a scary team, and I think that regardless of what happens this year, they'll be really good for future seasons as well. They're kind of built for the long haul. I think not having Chandler Jones is going to be an issue Um, not so much now, but probably down the stretch when you start to rely on your defense a little more. But yeah, I don't know if this is as much on Seattle as it is just a really good win for Arizona. At least in my opinion, I think Arizona, they'll be a feisty team, and I think that any other division they'd be in, they'd be the best team in that division. So it'll be an exciting race for sure. These teams are going to start playing each other more, as we mentioned, and all four of those teams are going to create must see primetime television like we saw last night. So it's really good game to cap off a thrilling Sunday.
They have some tough games, I guess I'll say that on upcoming throughout the rest of their schedule. I mean, it's not the hardest schedule in the world, obviously, because of where they finished in the division last year and just the divisions that they play. Um, they still have to play Seattle again um, on a Thursday night, so that might end up being the best Thursday night game of the year. I don't know why they put that game on Thursday night, but whatever. They play the 49ers one more time. They play the Rams twice. You get the Giants and the Eagles towards the end of the year. You play Miami in 2 weeks following a bye this week. You play Buffalo the week after. You still have New England. So I could see 5 more wins out of this final stretch. And 10-6, I think, gets you into the playoffs in the NFC. So yeah, I think I'd like to think that we're going to see them into the playoffs this year, which will be nice. Do they win the division? Probably not. I'd still say Seattle has the edge, but Arizona proved they can hang with them, and I think that's huge.
Oh yeah, they're exciting. It'll be for me to fully buy in. They would need to beat Seattle again, and if there's any year to do that, it would be this year because obviously going to Seattle is not the same as it usually would be. But we'll know more about this division probably by the end of November. But it's Seattle made some mistakes I didn't really expect them to. The Wilson interception kind of surprised me. Um, but yeah, Arizona, I agree, Ryan. They should be 7-0. But again, Carolina and Detroit, two teams we already talked about that are pretty decent. But if it's probably not their year, but next year Arizona, I think, can really compete in this division in terms of being a divisional winner. But I was wrong initially about Kyler Murray and
I was
Cliff
too.
Kingsbury. I will admit that. But I like watching them now. And it's a shame too because for whatever reason they don't really have primetime games this season. So the NFL wasn't really high on them coming into the year either. Uh, Reminder: this game wouldn't have been a primetime game initially. So they had the Cowboys game that was Monday Night Football, and then they would have had the Thursday night. So just two primetime games. And I think that San Francisco game later in the year is going to end up being a primetime game as well. But it's yeah, they will be a team next year that a lot of people won't be kind of as surprised about because I know you at the beginning of the year were kind of saying Arizona, 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 and you were right. They're kind of coming around. So we'll see. They're exciting though. It was a really good game yesterday. I will say that. Zane Gonzalez won me uh, this week in fantasy. So thank you, Zane. Beat Nicholas Halper by 4 points. The DeAndre Hopkins catch that was right before it put him in the lead. And then Gonzalez's field goal put me back in the lead for the win. So thank you to Mr. Gonzalez. 3-4 now, Ryan. We're making a comeback.
I will say Tyler Lockett helped me win in one of my leagues. He put up in my league 58 points. Now I'm up 177 to 128. So theoretically, he has Allen Robinson in the Rams defense. So I think Tyler Lockett got me the win, which I really needed. So Matt, to end this supersized episode, we've talked before about trying to actually be more concise, and clearly that just doesn't work for this podcast. Because we are now at 2 hours and 9 minutes. So This is a good podcast you just listen to in chunks during the week, I think. Just, if you're in your car, maybe you're on a nice walk somewhere, just pop this on and that's your listening. This is your listening for the week. You don't need to listen to anything else. Well, actually, no, you do need to listen to the other podcasts that we have on bestavailableplayer.com. But Matt, to end this episode, what you said you had something earlier on about 2 hours ago that what pops your tarts for this week. So what was that?
Yeah, what pops my tarts are loud vehicles,
Oh,
Ryan. So vehicles that you can hear from the road, or in neighborhoods that are like your neighborhood like next to you, like the street next to you, whatever. Like loud cars, especially loud cars after the hours of 10 p.m. Um, I don't really need to hear your car start up, or your truck or whatever vehicle, motorcycle, scooter. I don't need to hear your car start. Grinds my gears. And there's people out there that'll let it run too, like they'll start it and you let it run and just hear like the hum. Not a huge fan of it. So that pops my tarts. I don't need to hear you start your vehicle. So it's kind of annoying, but that's what pops my tarts.
okay, that's good. That's a good one. I agree. By the way, I think mine would be when it's like 70 degrees in late October. That pops my tarts because if you listen to the episode last week when I talked about what I got from Kohl's, I got a couple new pairs of nice Under Armour sweatpants, but I couldn't wear them last week because it was still so warm. So I was very perturbed about that. I just wanted the temperatures to go down. So yesterday was perfect. I woke up and I looked at my phone and it said it was in the mid 50s. I was like I did the little chef's kiss thing. I was like, ah, ah, perfect. It's perfect. So I just threw on my sweatpants. I walked outside. I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. As I said it 2 hours ago. I think summer is the worst season because I don't like hot weather. I hate it. I'd rather it be cold than hot. And I'm glad they were finally getting into that point. Done with the warm. Just give me the. I like waking up. I mean, I don't really wake up early anymore, but the days that I do, I like waking up and you just walk outside. You feel like that that bite that it's
You were
39 degrees, slight breeze. I like that a lot. Just wakes you
one
up.
of few, my friend. You're not too many that enjoy that.
Well, it was nice too. Like when we did the radio show at Monmouth, and we'd have to leave our apartments at six, a quarter to 7 in the morning. I walk right outside, and we're right on the ocean. So I walk right outside this time of year. Said high 30s, low 40s. Plus, you're getting that wind off the ocean that hits you right in the face as you come out of the door. Oh, it's perfect. Loved it.
Well, mind you, it was probably even in like the 20s too, because our Earth is getting warmer every year. So it's colder back then, right? Because this winter was kind of like child's play compared to what we had to do at 6 a.m. To scrape. So you enjoy waking up, going outside, instantly being cold, and then having to scrape your car off because there's ice on there because it's cold outside. That's what you're
I
telling
think
me.
I think that builds mental toughness, right? Like it just you're getting a nice workout in early in the morning. You're doing the I mean you can't see because my camera died, but you're doing you get a nice little upper body workout, scratch that ice off the windshield. You're
Yeah.
it's
No
perfect.
thanks. No, I'm all right, Ryan. I'll take uh 70 degrees and muggy in the morning any day of the week
Oh,
over.
I'm gonna say, I have another pass my tarts, not to cut you off. People that just warm their cars up during the winter. They go out, they turn their car on, they have it just run so it heats the car up, and they don't get in the car for like 10 minutes. That pass
That's
my
what you're
tarts.
supposed to do
No,
because
no,
it'll crack the engine. Yeah,
no,
you
that's
can't you
that's a
can't.
myth. That is a myth. Look it up. With modern engines, you don't have to do that. People do that because they don't like to be cold. They don't want to just leave and feel a little cold. They need to be nice and toasty. Well, I got news for you. Don't do that. Hate that.
Does it? Dude, I'm sure the Grand Cherokee would appreciate a little time to warm up in the
Even that's
morning.
fine. I'll tell you,
Well,
during
no,
the winter.
I know it's a reliable piece of machinery. I'm saying the car itself, you're probably hurting its feelings that you just say, let's go. Like you're just starting the day and
I'll tell you,
not
it's
giving it a time to warm up. Even the best athletes in the world, Ryan, have to stretch. So we have to let our cars stretch in the morning before we get going.
no, no.
That's
I get in my car wearing my winter jacket, just turn the car on, wait 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and then I'm out of there. And then listen, the car warms up as you go. So then you can just take off the jacket later on and
no,
you're
because
good to
by the
go.
time you get to your destination, then it's finally warm. So
Well,
it
then
defeats the purpose.
well, whatever. Okay.
I'm a car warmer. John DeLuca has taught me that it would crack the engine. So I have to read some academic journals about whether or not this theory is true or not. So are you looking it up? I hear you typing now.
Auto experts today say that you should warm your car up no more than 30 seconds before you start driving in winter. The engine will warm up faster being driven, the EPA and DOE explain.
I
Indeed, it is
can't beat
better to
the
turn your
EPA.
engine off and start it again than to leave it idling.
You learn something new every day.
So stop hurting the environment, all you people out there, by idling your damn engine. Okay. So Glenn DeNegris just sent a text message to the group chat, and he says he has the answer to the Phillies. So now we need to wait for this.
For our 2 hour and 18-minute podcast.
Well, what's another 30 seconds, really?
Tell them we're just tell them to call in. Just tell them to call in. Hold them up to the microphone. I think that's what we should do at this point. Great radio we're doing right now.
So I said, what would that be? He said, would you like to hear it? I said, yes. So I can't wait to hear what's smart. I
didn't get anything from him yet. Oh, so we waited 30 seconds for a Schitt's Creek reference. Is this what this is?
Yes.
Huh. There you go. Should I hold it up to the screen if anyone's watching?
Yeah, go for it.
Here we go. This is what is apparently the answer to the Phillies' problems.
Great show.
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay.
You all right?
We should we should probably.
You good, man? I was waiting for you to say something.
Okay, so that's
I got nothing else. Yeah, I got nothing else.
That's the end of this episode. God bless Al Horford. Fly Hawks. We'll catch you guys again next time.